Okay, we're good. Welcome to Christian Men Unscripted. I'm Alan Underwood. I'm here with John Harney, and Seth is not here today. He is on vacation again. That guy takes a lot of vacations.
I didn't know that we gave that to him in his contract, that he gets paid vacation, because we don't. But
no. Well, we don't get paid anything. It's more of a hobby right now. But we have a special guest, JD Alexander. Welcome.
Hey, JD.
Thank you for
Keep that
having
up
me.
to your mouth.
Thanks for having me.
Let me introduce you real quick, man, and then then we'll talk about it. JD Alexander, 27 years old, single. So any ladies out there? I've actually looked at our audience, and we have 0 women that listen. It does says unknown, so maybe we have some trans women. I don't know.
We can't say.
Can't say.
No,
that's not for you. Okay. You played football at Arizona State and UNLV, linebacker. You, where I met you was coaching at LMCA with Coach Nate. You're also coach now at Pinecrest with Nate.
Shout out to Nate, dude.
Yep, you're offense coordinator there, right? Correct.
Yep. Correct.
All right. Also, what I like is you're like an entrepreneur. You have a business that you run right now called Athlete Advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, I got to say it right?
Yes.
But you also want to start it as a nonprofit as well, or a separate, or kind of with it, profit, nonprofit type thing?
Yeah, along with it.
Yep. And you're currently serving in the Navy as a Navy SEAL?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
Not I, wrong guy.
Okay. Who is, we got to get, our staff, I got to get on.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But I appreciate you coming, man. Thanks for coming. What I would like to talk about first is just kind of growing up and how you ended up at Arizona State and playing football and everything. We'll start off with that, and then we'll just go down the list. You got any questions before we start on that?
No, I say let's just get started with who you are and kind of how this came about.
Let me tell you guys a funny story real quick. Before you came over, I had to get in the shower, I had to get ready. You ever seen the movie Arachnophobia? Anybody?
No.
This is before your time.
It's old, yeah. I remember it, dude. It's been a
You're
while.
only 27, man.
Yeah, he's like, what? Is that on Turner Classic Movies?
Yeah, it's a black and white movie. Yeah. But I get in the shower, and there's a spider, like in the shower with me. I didn't see him at first, but he's in the corner, and he's not small. He's not big, but he's not small. He's like the size of my thumb, like a nickel. And I freaked out, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. When he's kind of trying to get away from the water, and I'm like, I almost stepped on him, but I'm barefooted. I'm like, oh God! So I'm like ducking and dodging him, and then I'm like, what do I do? So I get out of the shower, and I got tile in there. So now I'm slipping, and I'm trying to get some tissue to kill this spider, and I don't want him to go down the drain because then I'm not going to be able to take a shower because he'll come back up. That's how my day started.
Wow.
And now I'm afraid. And we're not. It's a clean house, but we got spiders, man. It's scaring the heck out of me.
You're lucky to be alive because when
Funny
we
story.
I first walked in, what are you, 50-something, right? And JD is 27.
Yep.
You didn't have
And
to
that's
say
what
that.
we're yeah, no. But that's what we're just joking about before we went on the mic was like, you get all old. So I'm just saying, dude, you start dancing around in the shower with a spider, dude, you're lucky to be alive right now.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean?
I got
You
up
could've
off the couch
slept
in my
and you
Bro,
could've
I'm telling you,
died, yeah.
I'm just saying, just wait, dude. You got time. You got time. You're doing good. You got a long time. But
It's coming.
it's coming.
It's coming
Yeah,
fast.
it's
I'm just trying to be honest, bro. Because all of a sudden you're like, something in my back.
All right.
Am I dying? All right,
So
go.
let's start. I mean, how'd you end up to start playing football?
So basically, my dad's been a college football coach for pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
So he kind of started coaching when I was really young, and that's what kind of brought me into football. Kind of just start playing at a young age, being around the programs that he had been at.
There you go.
Just gave me the opportunity to be around different athletes and how they operated, and I just fell in love with the game and just kind of how I was aggressive, kind of like a little rough around the edges. So, tackling, wrestling, all that stuff. Me and my cousins used to do that. So, football just kind of became one of the things that we did.
Did your dad coach at Arizona State?
Yes.
Okay.
He coached there as well.
All right.
Yeah, but I actually grew up in a basketball family, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
See, I
a
love
lot of my uncles played basketball. They played football as well, but they played basketball. My older cousins played basketball, so really grew up in a basketball family. But my dad was a football guy, so kind of brought me to playing football.
And then you transferred to UNLV, and you played with Nate. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I was a big UNLV fan when you guys were there, and I still am. But I'm Ohio State mainly. But
kind of interesting. So my first game, actually, I transferred from ASU. I had to sit out for a year.
Right.
The first game of the season was Howard.
That's the game I went to.
That's the first game I went to as a Rebel.
Do you know that was the largest spread in NCAA history at the time? for a football team to lose. What's his name's brother? Cam Newton's brother was there.
And then Brendan Marion, the offense coordinator at UNLV, was OC at Howard back then.
Oh, okay.
So
so that was the game I went to, and I didn't know you guys then, but it was crazy. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah, good old Sam Boyd, huh?
But then I went to UNLV game 2 weeks ago when they won 72-6, 7.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, I told Nate, I didn't tell you, but I was like, hey, these are games you guys would lose before.
No, seriously?
Yeah, I mean, now UNLV's winning. But anyway, let's move on to LMCA, where I met you at Lake Mead Christian Academy. You were working there, teaching there, and coaching there. You were the offensive coordinator. And that's where we had conversations. That's why I kind of know. That's why I have you on the show. Is I know you're a man of God. I know you have faith in the Lord. And that's what this podcast is all about. And we want to what I love is how you coach these kids that I saw. I saw you and Nate and all the coaches, how you guys were a kind of a light in their life, and how you even changed them from like boys to men, to be honest with you. I know it's a group as well.
Boys to men?
Yeah.
We're not going there. Can you sing? No.
Boys to men?
Yeah, we can get it out.
All right. But I remember that year that you guys were coaching. You guys won the state championship, and you had a quarterback there who's now in Texas. He's tearing it up in Texas from what Nate was telling me. Is that true?
Yeah, he just got offered by Ole Miss the other day.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Then
and I saw he's got 4 stars. He's a 4-star quarterback.
And you coached him as offensive coordinator there to the state record in Nevada for touchdowns.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. Just be honest. Did you guys throw when you probably didn't need to get the record, or was it pretty, what's the word I'm looking for, just in the flow of the game?
So, okay, funny story about that. Okay. So that was a big deal kind of at the end of the season that no one really knew about, right? Because once you realize that you're getting to that point where it's going to be kind of close, it's like, okay, I'm not going to be oblivious to the fact that we're close to breaking the record, and I'm not going to be oblivious and say I don't want the record. You know what I mean? But we had to make it a point to make sure that wasn't the priority. And, some things may have gotten misconstrued, and as a staff, we communicate well, but Rick Strasser came to speak to the team our first playoff game.
Shout out to Rick. Yeah, he's been on the show a couple episodes,
And he came and talked to us about God's glory and how it can be so much better than what you believe. That, is just, so much that you want. And I think that kind of changed my perception. And actually, during the state championship, when we actually broke the record, the touchdown that broke the record, I wasn't even paying attention, and I had to tell me on the mic that we had actually broken.
Oh, that's great.
But that awesome. Kind of switched my kind of perspective and how I was looking at it, because I was I want to break the record. We're gonna go.
Yeah, and that's normal.
Do that.
Yeah.
But he was like, that's just not what you're trying to do. You shouldn't be trying to do that. You should be trying to be the best that you can every day and glorify God.
Yep.
And in that, He will reward you.
And He did. That was great. It was great. That was a great championship game too.
Yeah.
And then you guys got offered, all of you. Well, Nate did the job at Pinecrest, and you moved over to Pinecrest, Sloan Canyon in Las Vegas, which I've been to all your games except for the road games when you travel north to Las Vegas. I'll just have people update me. But the first game I went to was a scrimmage game, and I was like, ooh, this is bad. It was a rough scrimmage, but I've been to the last couple, and I know you guys got beat last night, but not bad. I mean, the progression there, especially on offense with your quarterback, which you are really key in, that is really good in my opinion. And I'm not a football coach. I just love football, but I was like, I see a big difference in them. I mean, obviously when you play some bigger schools, it's going to be rough, but you guys are competing, you're winning games, which they won their first game, 2 weeks ago against Western, which I went to school at Western, and I was like rooting for you guys, but I was also kind of like, oh, Western to win, but it's not the same Western than when I was there. It's kind of, actually, it's kind of close, to be honest. It's a little the same, but that was big, man. You guys won that first game, Pinecrest, first victory in school, and then you won the next week as well. How'd that feel, winning those games for that school? It's a good atmosphere there too.
Yeah, it felt good, but the kids are bought in to kind of just getting better every day,
right? And they are
trying to fall in love with kind of the process. I know it's very cliche, but fall in love with the process and just showing up every single day. That's something that we have a challenge to do. Like yesterday, for instance, we won last week, but then yesterday we come out, we get too comfortable and too complacent, and then what happens. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a battle within ourselves and getting the kids to understand that. They're like, okay, you did have success, but that wasn't the goal. The goal was to be better that day, you know? and in turn, if you build days of success, you become successful. So
That's awesome.
Dude, I love it. Actually, it's funny because I'm kind of, for a couple things are happening here. One, Alan's wheelhouse is sports. So we start talking football, we start talking basketball. Dude, he'll just go down that, and that's the podcast he's going to do, right? Like all of a sudden it turns into a sports podcast. He don't care about nothing else.
I also like pumpkin spice lattes. I have a pumpkin spice coffee here. It's that time of year. I asked Jade if he wanted one before he came. I was like, bro, it's pumpkin spicy. You don't want one?
Hey, full disclosure. He's like, can you stop by Starbucks? And then he's like, hey, I'm going to get you a coffee, bro. And he's hitting me up. I'm just like, but that's because I'm the one driving. I get it. It's just still funny. But obviously we would, but he did say, I'll pay you back. But hey, it's funny because as soon as we start talking sports, right, that's his Alan lights up, and he's going to start, he'll remember stats, he'll remember games from high school games he went to or watched or what you guys have done, UNLV especially.
Losing to Howard.
Yeah, losing to Howard, knowing exactly who was playing, who was coaching, right?
Yep.
I love it. But what I'm picking up on is a pretty important point that you just said, how like you guys just lost the other day because you became complacent. Goes back to when you said that Strasser came and talked about like doing things as unto the glory of God. And, in secular sayings, we always do that, like shoot for the stars. And if you shoot for the stars and you hit the moon, right, then at least you still accomplished some greatness. Spiritually speaking, though, what you said is you remind these young men, everything you do to the glory of God. And if you're doing something to the glory of God, then you should be giving it your best every time you step out on the field in sports or in life. And then you will actually accomplish more than you could possibly imagine, which included an amazing record, right? That state record you're talking about. I just found that fascinating that even you didn't realize at the time the record had been broken. I'm just kind of going back to that because your perspective had changed a little bit, right? Like, hey, man, we need to be doing this to the glory of God. And so going back in your life, can I ask you that? Like, what type of influential maybe things, words was it your dad? Was it coaches? I know your dad was a coach. But can you kind of recall some of that, going all the way back to that? Like in your own football career as a young kid, were you strictly motivated, be honest, strictly motivated by great performance, trying to perform for your dad, trying to perform for your coaches, or was there ever any of that kind of stuff inside of you?
That's a good one. I would have never got that question.
I would say a little bit of both.
Okay.
I feel like since a young age, I've always wanted more.
Yeah.
I've always wanted more. And to a fault sometimes, as we all want more. And, the older I get, I realize that, there's always going to be more. And the more I, just kind of like go through life, I understand that the only more that satisfies me is God.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll give a shout out. Actually, Chris Cochran told me this. When you give everything to him, you don't get tired in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go and chase money, you get tired of it. And it's endless. And you can get all this, right? But when you go and you go after him, there's no fatigue there.
Right.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah.
It actually gives you the strength to keep going. And that's kind of something that I've learned, as of lately, as I've been kind of an adult. But as a younger kid, I mean, I've always just wanted more, just wanted to be better. Like, just try to just be better, better than I was before, and then just kind of stack on that. And that comes from just like kind of how I was raised with my parents. Then just kind of raised me and just want more for yourself. Like, there's always you can be happy with where you are, but there's always something better that you can be doing. There's always something more that you can go and try to achieve, or there's always more to it. So I've kind of stuck with that.
We had a guest, Joey Cunha, last couple weeks, and he was sort of, because he comes from this athletic background and this athletic coaching background to achieve greatness as an individual athlete, right? And coming from that, but then always having this sense of if I do better, if I do this, as I seek for more, then I'll feel satisfied. So it's this if and then mentality that you see with athletes a lot, by the way, which you see in professionals and all these other things. And so kind of going back to my question, though, as you were growing up, do you think that was all from within you, or was it because your dad was a coach? Because this will translate to anything else. People in careers, they have a successful attorney father, so they feel like they better go to law school or they better do X, Y, or Z to get dad's love, kind of a thing. And I'm not trying to like push any of those thoughts unless that's actually the truth. I'm just trying to ask because listeners might hear some of their story.
Especially young athletes,
Yeah, and especially young athletes.
Because we'll probably get some of your athletes listening. They'll be like, oh.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like,
Maybe
from
not. Make sure they listen.
as you grow, you change a little bit. And so
Yeah.
you're saying, yeah, you should always go for more. But was this just for personal greatness? And then when did you start to see a shift, or was there one where you recognize it's all about giving God the glory? And
Well, when I was younger, like I said, being in those locker rooms and seeing all those things, I did want, because I saw that, you know, that was like kind of like almost like the standard almost was, you know, if I'm walking around these locker rooms, I'm seeing these guys, I wanted to be one of those guys. So I guess that was kind of my motivation. And from a standpoint of like, okay, yeah, that would be cool to be able to, like, you know what I mean, have my people be able to come out to my games and, you know, have what they had. That was kind of my motivation, I guess you could say, having what they had, where it was like playing at that high level.
Getting the accolades.
Being a part of, you know, stadiums full of people. All of that stuff kind of stuck out to me, and having that stuff that they had. So
yeah, that's understandable.
As a young kid, I was like striving to want to go get that.
Yeah.
So
if you could go back and give your young self some advice to that same drive, or some perspective to maybe even help, what would you tell your 17-year-old self about just that mentality? Like, it's going to be cool to be the gladiator in the arena, which we all love.
Yeah.
But is there any advice you might say, like, but maybe think about this to yourself? You know what I mean?
The same thing I tell my kids every day. Just try to be better than you were yesterday. Don't, like I tell them now. Okay, so I read a book called Atomic Habits, and it's like talking about, I'm not trying to set a goal, because if I set a goal, I'm setting a goal for my direction. But I want to just get better every single day in that direction, and then whatever happens, right? So like for instance, last year, you know, I had a goal for 3,000 passing yards and #1 quarterback in state. We broke the record for passing touchdowns in a season.
Yeah.
You know, the goal was just the direction that we wanted to go in. But like having that perspective, if I could tell my younger self, yo, you can set a goal to want to do something, but the only thing that comes after you accomplish the goal is a sense of satisfaction. Yeah. Right? You get satisfied because we're human, right?
Right.
That's just human nature for me to set a goal, accomplish a goal, and become satisfied.
Yep.
So just having the perspective of you're setting the goal for the direction that you want to go in. So if you want to play college football at the Division I level, set that goal. But overall, you want to be the best human being or the best person that you can be. So in turn, it's like, okay, that might be the direction, but you're going to still wake up every day to try to be the best person that you can be, the best human that you can be, the best brother, you know, the best son, teammate that you can be. Because I think that kind of gets lost in the mix when you're so just focused on the goal. You kind of lose everything that comes along with it in the process. So
I think what you said a little bit ago, when you're you know, as a young man growing up, you want the accolades, you want to do that, and then as you started coaching and working, and what Chris said, it's like same for me. Like, I'm always wanting more. Like, if I get this, I'll be satisfied. If I get this, I'll be satisfied. If I get this, I'll make it. This will make me happy. And then I find out nothing really makes me happy, because once I get it, it's over. You're satisfied, and then it's like, what's the next thing? And then when you find satisfaction in the Lord, and you know what the person you are, then you're really satisfied. Because I've watched you guys. I watch all of you guys, and I know you're all on different paths in your walk with the Lord and stuff. And I mean, it's a Christian podcast, but I know that, like, Jesus was sent here to be a light in the darkness. And I watch you guys. I watch you. I watch Nate. I watch Gabe, even though he wouldn't want to come on. He said he didn't want to come on. He goes, "Oh no, have JD. I'm not ready for that yet." Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But you guys are a light for those kids, and the way you carry yourselves, the way you teach these kids, is you don't have to get out there, especially at a secular school. You don't have to get out there and be like, "Do you know the Lord and Savior?" You just got to exemplify that, and they see that, and they go, "Hey, what do you have? You, JD, I see you're just a great guy and this and that." You go, "I just have my faith in the Lord." You don't have to go out there into a locker room and be like, you know, and get yourself in trouble, but they know that you're a Christian. They know that you're satisfied with who you are and what you're doing. And when you said that's me. And even to this day in my flesh, I'm like, oh, if I can get this, we talked about it last week, if I can get, you know, 100,000 followers on YouTube, which we don't have. We only have 42. So make sure we tell people to subscribe.
Subscribe.
Yeah. But people listen, but then I'll be satisfied. But I'm never satisfied. The only time I feel whole is after I read my Bible or after I have these conversations with guys like you and John. That's where we find satisfaction. But we're still going to strive to win games. We're still going to strive to accomplish our goals. But we're never going to be satisfied. Like even I would imagine how like a Super Bowl winner. I've seen guys who talked about winning a Super Bowl and it's great. You party, you have fun, and it's like, oh, what's next?
Yeah.
You know, so I see that in you guys. I see that light that you guys shine on these kids, and I appreciate it, man. And we're going to get into your other endeavors, your entrepreneurship and the nonprofit you're trying to start. But you have any other questions?
I
saw he writes stuff down, and he's old. I have a good memory.
You know what, though? It's a life practice, by the way, I learned from a professional career where every little detail mattered, but you don't want to cut people off very often if they've got a train of thought, so you're better to just take a quick note, right?
Yeah.
I just remember it.
What I know. See, I don't have as good of a memory, right? So, I see what Alan's talking about is that he sees you guys, right? I haven't seen you guys from the sidelines like he has you and all these guys he keeps mentioning, and he's like, no, I'm telling you, you watch these guys feed into kids, and they're giving of themselves, and it comes from a faith-based perspective in their lives, whether they're saying it or not, right? And what I find interesting is you talk about be better. There's always more. You can do better. You're going to achieve certain things and have satisfaction in those things. That satisfaction is always so fleeting, though. I don't know that you would speak to that exactly. It feels great that you had that record, and I bet it felt awesome at the time, and it's sort of fun to talk about, but it's in the past now. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I kind of, maybe you can share some of your thinking on this, because you're a younger guy than us. We pointed that out. As you get older, you just kind of mature. I mean, you really do. You look back and you're like, man, I was kind of an idiot. Last week I was an idiot, right? But you start to recognize your idiocracy quicker, I think, as you get older.
Great movie,
you know?
by the way.
Yeah. But we're talking about achieving things, and I think sometimes what I wrote down just now, I almost drew little arrows, like parallel arrows, because I think sometimes we look at like a spiritual, like a walk of faith.
Can you do that again?
Yeah. Because what I'm saying
I was watching it on camera. You look ridiculous.
That's fine. I always do. The point is, it's like you think you have this life of faith. I'm living for God. I'm trying to go to church. I'm trying to learn the Bible. I'm trying to share Jesus. And you almost look at it like, but also I'm trying to be a great athlete, and I want to achieve X, Y, or Z as an athlete, a better person. And you almost look at them like you're living parallel lives. I got my life that my church people see, between me, that's me and God. But then I'm out on the field. I want to be the fastest runner, the strongest hitter, the hardest hitter, et cetera, et cetera. And you almost look at them like a parallel thing. But the reality is, I think real satisfaction, you opened with this. You never become tired when you're just trying to live for the Lord all the time and glorify Him. No. And so rather than being like a parallel life, it's more of one life. But I think we have a tendency to separate it, like it's two parallel things.
Yeah.
Can you do you understand what I'm asking, and sort of asking you to sort of expand on a little? Like, would you have looked at it as two separate things? Or do you look at it as being a great athlete, being a great coach, teaching these kids to be great athletes? Is that part of their spiritual walk, or is that a totally separate or parallel, different life than just trying to know who God is and glorify Him in other activities in life?
No, I think like you said, it's one line. It's not two parallel lines. It's really one line. But like for instance, you have to be careful, right? We're not at a Christian school anymore.
Yeah, it was easier at Lake Mead.
You know what I mean? It's easier at Lake Mead, like you said. During Lake Mead, I would take kids to a night service at City Light. I can't do that here.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So things are kind of different, but at the same time, I can still teach them faith principles without having to speak exactly to what I'm speaking to.
Sure.
Right.
I can speak on what I want to speak on without having to say what I.
Yeah, my wife is a school teacher, and she has that same balancing act with the students. Like when they ask that question, I remember one time she was like, "Well, why is this?" And she's like, "Because of God." And they're like, "Oh, what?" She's like, "Well, that's why you asked me, so I'm going to tell you." But other than that, you got to walk that fine line because you still want to keep your job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's funny. We act like, do we live in a communist country where we're not allowed to mention God?
Right.
I mean, I understand there's a...
No, I agree, and we should. But I'm saying, like, you're gonna get a, even being on a podcast like this, if somebody who don't like what you have to say, you could get in trouble. I mean, but you're not out there at the school saying, I feel like we still have a life to live, right?
It's just, I get what you guys are saying, but it actually, so then maybe people should wake up. If that's the issue, you're afraid to be in trouble or be fired over sharing your faith, then you don't live in the America that America was dreamt to be. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. And I think he agrees with you on that. But what I'm saying is, as my wife, we need that income. I mean, I don't want to get fired, but also you should be able to do it. And you do. Yeah. I've seen these guys. I mean, I've seen what they've done with the students, and you don't have to go out there and
Oh man,
You
and I'm
know-
not. By the way, I'm
Yeah.
not even. That's not even what I'm saying. Where while you're coaching these kids, you just have to constantly be giving the gospel,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
verbatim, the gospel, and here's what the Bible is, guys. 66 books and letters out of the Bible. This is what Moses talked about when it comes time to breaking the line. You know.
Yeah, and I think that's. I'm sorry, because you're right. That's the world we're in now. It's just crazy. I mean, it's
crazy we're having this
a political
conversation.
Yeah, like,
season.
we're just-
There's a political season, and it's like Christianity and abortion and all this, and it's like, what world are we living in? I should be free to say whatever I want. If you don't want to listen, don't listen. We actually got a review on one of our YouTubes. You didn't see it. I haven't told you guys. He goes, stop spewing that Christian stuff. Nobody wants to hear it from a bunch of yahoos. And I was like, hey, thanks for listening and subscribe.
Thanks for
And then he
listening.
deleted it. It was gone. I was like, man. So
That's actually
mean,
pretty
it's
funny, man.
crazy.
Good.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
we're getting out there.
Yeah, you have to be careful, but at the same time, like you said, you can teach faith principles without, I can get my message across without being like 100% direct with my message.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, again, if I talk to a group of, let's say I got 20 players' ears, right? I give them some direction and a message that leads them to think a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. That thought then has them stay after, ask me a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, what's your walk like?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm like this. My parents are this. Boom. Now, okay, we're having
Yeah.
that conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, yep.
But like I said, you have to be like, you have to move around things like in a certain way. You know what I mean? Like you can't be.
That's the same conversation we had with Nate. Nate said
Yeah.
the same thing pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, you got to be careful. But like at the same time, like our team prays after every game.
Yeah.
Our team before we eat.
Yeah.
We pray. But we came from a Christian school, but we didn't tell them to do that.
Sure.
That's
Right.
something that they chose to do.
Yeah.
Because we taught them faith principles.
Right.
And had conversations with people who have come to us and had conversations with us in private, asking us what we believe.
Sure.
And in turn, having the same beliefs. And then, players hold themselves to a higher standard. Like if a player says something to another player, it's very valuable. If a coach says something to a player, I'm the coach.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So then when you get to that point where you've got your players that are, bought in and they're taught like that at home the same way, and you can have conversations with them, and then that becomes infectious of your team, and then you get what we have now where they want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to my whole point of bringing up like parallel lines goes back to what I'm saying about Alan. How
Yeah,
he
and
has seen
I
you guys.
apologize because I was very confused on the question. I'm glad he wasn't, but I wasn't like, what?
That's because you were so busy making fun of me making the parallel line physical look. My
No,
point is,
I'm not the smartest guy.
No, but my point is exactly what Alan brought up is what he appreciates about you guys. The reason why he's asked you on, the reason why he asked Nate on is because he's seen you in action, which tells me that as you're coaching, you're not living a parallel life of faith over here, coaching over here. You're just living a life that in your own personal faith, in your own personal walk, you bring it to the field. Doesn't mean you're saying it all the time. It's just you're showing it. You're
People
living
see
it.
it.
That's what James literally talks about. I talk about it all the time, like faith and works. It just means your life shows it.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, what I was trying to get at. Because that's why you're here, is Alan says that. He's like, no, you see a guy, he's a young guy, but his life shows it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So funny is I had a thought and I forgot it, and I just said I didn't forget it. I was like, I should have wrote it down.
Oh, and wait, you had a thought that you forgot that you said you don't do, but you even also have a pen and paper.
Yeah, I can't read my own handwriting at the time.
Yeah, I can't read it. By the way, I'm looking at it because I was like, what was the record again? Because I knew it was either passing or touchdowns last year. Was it touchdowns?
Yeah,
Passing
58.
touchdowns or
And
just
what was
passing?
the
touchdowns.
and what was the
Okay.
record last year? Like 12-1 or something?
Yes, we won.
Yeah.
What was it? 11-1,
11-1, something.
10-1.
Yeah.
Hey,
Something like
either
that.
way, I knew it had something to do with passing and or touchdowns.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to look at Alan's notes on that. I was like, I don't even know what that says at all. I can't read my own writing either.
Yours
though,
is
so-
worse, man.
It is worse. It is worse.
Everybody has their own rhythm for taking notes, though. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because, it should be your thinking.
yeah.
How you going to get back in there? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Okay, let me ask you some stuff. Do you have any daily practices before you go coaching or just before your day starts that have a tendency to focus or center your faith walk? I'm asking you that kind of stuff as it applies to your life because, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I say is prayer, because
That's the one thing I got to work on. I feel like I don't do that enough.
Yeah, because I feel like it's good for me too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of centers myself because, one, when I'm doing it, I do it aloud. So I can actually hear myself when I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So it kind of centers me and puts me in a place where I'm like, okay, this is out of my control. Like, if I'm asking out loud for God to help me, that means that I don't need to stress about this because obviously I can't control it because I would have fixed it already.
Right.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Dude, that's a good point.
You know, I think that's the biggest thing that helps me and centers me is, like I said, if I'm asking for it aloud and I could have fixed it, I mean, what you know, kind of puts it in perspective.
It does.
So I think that's the biggest thing for me, for sure, hands down.
Okay. And at 27 years old, football, playing, coaching, having a dad who's a coach, is there any one big lesson, because we're about to get into kind of some of the nonprofit stuff, but is there any one big lesson that you feel like, man, you can't escape that, you know, X, Y, or Z in my life could have been done better, you know, looking back? Do you have anything like that? I didn't ask you this before we went on the mic at all. Told you it's unscripted. I'm just trying to find out.
One thing. Just like one thing that
I don't know, anything that's super glaring. Like you look back, man,
I wish I would have done this better. Or
you know, like some, you know, you'll see athletes. Okay, for instance, like some professional athletes who might look back and say, you know, I made it so much about me, that my family fell apart, my whole life fell apart. You see guys who become suicidal over stuff like that, right? I didn't even care about the team, right? Especially athletes. My whole identity was so wrapped in me being the very best.
Like after you left college and stuff, were you like trying to go to another level, or you're like, no, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore? I don't mean something like that, right?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, I'm just, you know, because everyone has a different thought on that kind of a.
Well, when you're like you said, when you're in athletics, your identity kind of gets in the mix of kind of what you're doing, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
we talked about that.
when you're a football player, you identify yourself as, I'm a football player, you know, and that becomes okay for you to identify yourself as that's your priority as an individual, and that's your primary identity is I'm a football player. So I think that like a lot of athletes come to a point where it's like when you can't identify as such, now you have a identity crisis. So now it's like, okay, well, I can't make it to the league. My career is over.
What next?
You know, like now what do I do? So I think, you know, if I could change one thing, that would be it. Is how I identified myself within myself.
That's what we talked about. Rick Strasser talked about that, and that's what his Overtime Ministries is pretty much about. So that's Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off, brother.
Yeah, because it kind of like I said, when you. Because you have to, like, to an extent, right? You should always have your identity in Christ, okay? But in order to be a part of the 1 or the 2%, you have to miss a lot of things. You have to sacrifice a lot of time, and you kind of identify yourself as that because it's like, I can't do that because I'm a football player. I can't go and do that. Or I can't go home for Thanksgiving because I play football, because I'm a football player. So you find these things in your life and they become parallels to like kind of how you identify yourself, because you have to kind of rationalize, why can't I go hang out with my family for Thanksgiving? Why can't I go to Christmas to be with my family? You know, how come I can't do this? Because I'm a football player. And then you start to identify yourself as such, opposed to, you know, I'm a follower, but I play football.
Right.
You know, like this is not who I am. So then athletes become like I said, to a point where they have to transition, and it becomes tough because it's like, I'm this, but it's like, no, that's what you
so
did,
much more.
you know.
Yes.
Like, and he doesn't make mistakes. So like, if that's not who you are now, just wait. Just watch. Just watch.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's exactly, you literally brought up exactly, I think, what I was hoping that you would. Which is, that's what I do. It's not who I am. Like, you look back and you realize you said it a bunch, by the way. I'm a football player, so I have to miss Thanksgiving. I have to be here. I have to do this. I have to identify as a football player. I think all of us, especially if you're good at something, we had the same conversation with Rick Strasser, with Joey Cunha. We have these conversations with these guys where that is the sense, especially in athletics. But I'm telling you, it's the same I ran homicide guys. They were a homicide detective. I have to your job did dictate that you had to miss Christmases
Yeah.
because there was somebody murdered and you got to be out there dealing with it.
Biggest murder day of the year, Christmas.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is up there.
It's
Really?
up there.
But I mean, the point is, it's sort of the same. So then you find out, well, this is who I am, and you get stuck in that. Man, you look back on your younger self and you're like, no, you were good at it, and that's great. It's not bad that you were good. It's not bad that you were driven to be the best at it. That ain't a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it's what you do. It's not who you are always. That's
Exactly.
there you go. So that's what I'm saying. As you look back on your younger self, you had to. I have to because I'm a football player.
Yeah.
No, you want to because you want to be the best football player. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
A little bit of a paradigm and a thinking shift there, So
Yeah.
So let's get into what you're doing now. You are obviously coaching at Pinecrest, but you also have a business that you kind of started. I'll let you name it.
The Athlete Advantage.
Yep, and it was funny. I remember at Lake Mead when we talk, and you're like, "I'm going to start this business, and I'm going to put it out there." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to put it out there."
I know.
I know.
It's kinda funny.
And now here you are.
Yeah,
You're doing
here
much better
we
than I am,
are.
though.
Here we are, man. Here
But
we are.
I look at your videos, man. You put some good videos out. You're training young men. You have girls too, or no? Just
Yeah, I do actually.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And so just explain what that is, and then we'll go into the nonprofit part that you're trying to get started, but you haven't yet. But talk about your business, what you do, and how you do it.
So obviously I have a company called the Athlete Advantage. I train athletes anywhere from football to really any sport. And it's called the Athlete Advantage because it's for all athletes.
Not just football.
It's not just football. I want to be able to reach everybody, whether it's women's sports, whether it's guys sports, football, all the way to soccer. I want to be able to have a service that can help athletes. And when we talk about athletes, I'm not just talking about athleticism when it comes to athletes. I'm talking about like athletes. Like there's a lot to the word athlete, right? When it comes to understanding what the recruitment process looks like, understanding how to conduct yourself at school, understanding
That's awesome.
that when somebody when a coach comes, that they're not going to ask if you're athletic because that's the baseline. You're
Right.
going to ask what your grades look like and what your character is. You know what I mean? And that's what I think a lot of training businesses and just models don't have is helping and servicing the athlete in its entirety.
That's awesome.
So I think that's a big focus for me in making sure that I can serve in ways that aren't offered or kind of passed over because the
what
athleticism is.
What ages do you start? It doesn't matter. I mean, obviously they got to be able to walk.
Yeah.
They got to be an athlete.
Yeah.
So
So I'll go with kids as young as probably 6th grade is when
Cool.
I'll start with a kid because, like I said, I'm tailoring it to the athlete.
So
Right.
there's already something there that they're
Yeah.
seeing, that the
So-
parents are seeing.
Yeah, so my older kids, we'll get in the weight room, we'll do running mechanics, we'll do stuff like this, and they get a lot from me. So they're kind of like, all right, I get it now.
Yeah.
But the younger athletes, I try to teach them different things, like like why would you come here and not try to be your best, or or we might do plyometrics to get them to figure out how their body works or get control of their body, because a lot of kids don't know or have control of their body.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and then
I'm 51 years old. I still don't.
Well, you just had a massive. Well, you did okay. You survived the spider incident this
Oh,
morning, dude.
thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
You're all right.
If
Yeah.
it,
you got some type of balance.
Yeah, you do okay.
I almost stepped on him. I'm glad I didn't. That was a bad. I was like, oh, no, don't do that.
That's
Anyway,
funny.
go ahead.
But yeah, so just servicing the athletes wherever they need the service is kind of what we're offering. We also have a 7-on-7 team as well. So we had anywhere from 14, 15U, and then also a high school team.
Okay.
So we're working on expanding that a little bit more and expanding on the training as well.
Can I ask you? I mean, it's a simple question. Why? Like, what's the heart behind this? Why? Why did you decide you want to do this?
Okay, so interesting story. So what was that? 2021, when we first started coaching, Nate calls me. I'm working for Mr. Cooper in mortgage right out of COVID. He calls me. He's
So you're
like,
doing mortgage during the COVID
Yeah, I'm
thing?
doing
Okay.
mortgage during COVID.
Okay.
Mortgage loans. He calls me. He's like, yo, would you want to coach? I'm like,
That sounds just like Nate.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nate is the type of guy, he's not going to take no. So he just keeps calling me like, yo, you want to coach? You want to coach? I'm like, bro, no, I'll figure it out. Okay. And then I got to the point where I was like, all right, I'll figure it out if I can do it around my schedule.
Okay.
And then at some point I was just like, I want to be able to like have more time for my business, because I knew that I wanted to have a business. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but I knew I wanted to give time to my business. And he had told me, he was like, yo, you can come to school. We can try this. I'm like, all right, whatever. You know,
he wore you down.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So then I get to the school. 1 year goes by. I'm like, wait, I kind of actually like this. Like, you know, I'm not making like any, like there's, you know, I'm working at Lake Mead, so.
It's a ministry school.
It's a ministry school.
When you're in ministry, you don't make a lot.
Yeah. So I'm like, I love doing this, but I have to figure out a way that I can make this work or be manageable for myself. So then that's when I decided I was going to have a 7-on-7 team. Actually,
which is a football team.
Yeah, so
like,
it's a football team, like a club for football.
Yeah.
But I used to eat lunch with a group of 8th graders every day, and they convinced me to do it. And then next thing you know, I started a training business, and now it's to a point where it's like I've got kids from northern Vegas all the way to East.
It started out like a side hustle to make the extra to train kids.
Started off like
because
you said.
And I'm not going to badmouth Lake Mead. They got to pay the bills, but they definitely don't pay a lot, and you got to make a living.
Yeah.
And you're coaching, and you're just taking a stipend from that. And you were teaching a little bit.
Yeah.
The Bible class and history
Bible
or
classes, whatever. Yeah. Just trying to figure it out, basically. And then, like I said, I came up with this. And, you know, me and Alan used to talk about it. I'm like, I'm going to start an Instagram page. And then, you know, next thing you know, it's just like, you know, kind of just been, like I said, 1% better every day. Like, trying to just get better. Like,
okay.
There's nothing that I can do miraculous that's going to get me better tomorrow.
Right. That's kind of how I feel about the podcast. I mean, I worry about it. I'm like, we need to get more followers. We just started YouTube. We're two old guys who don't know much about YouTube. But, hey, we're doing it, and a little bit better each day. Did you have another question?
I mean, no, honestly, about that, go ahead, because I'm just going to ask kind of like what he's hoping to accomplish. But that might
that's kind of what I'm getting into with the nonprofit, because we talked about you want to start. We're trying to start a nonprofit for youth, for people to help people. I don't know how it works. He's dealing with that part. He has an attorney that he's working with. But you were telling me about the nonprofit you want to start with your business. So it'll kind of be like a for-profit, nonprofit type business. So if you get that approval, what does that look like?
So as of right now, I have all my groups, and everybody has to, like, there's expenses that have to be paid. But like we talked about before, football is one of the dying sports that you don't have to pay to play. Like, right? Basketball has AAU. You travel all these tournaments. You got to pay to play, right?
You do.
Baseball.
My son was club baseball. I mean, millions of dollars invested.
You know what I mean?
Okay, not millions, but it seems
soccer.
Like and he's not even in the major leagues, man.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like super expensive. So I figure if you put a foundation on top of what we're doing, it'll give us an opportunity for us to go and try to generate funds to be able to help these families and these kids who have athletic abilities, and we believe that they can change their life through athletics.
I agree.
Just trying to give them an opportunity to be able to do so, because, you know, I'm fortunate because my father was able to do things and give my family and my brothers and us an opportunity to do things that a lot of my people in my family have never been able to do before. So I carry that with me. So understanding that I have people in my life who would be, you know, who would have benefited from an opportunity like this. I take pride in trying to make sure I can accomplish this for young men and women who would like to change their life through athletics.
That's awesome.
I love it, man. It's trying to provide opportunity.
And you know,
bottom line, right?
One of the things that you said that really stands out to me, because like John said, I love sports. Sports is like I'm one of those dads that lived my life vicariously through my son when he played baseball. Not really,
poor
but
kid.
kind of. Yeah, poor kid. I apologize to him when he was 18. By the way, he's gonna be 21 on Monday. That's crazy.
Wow. Dang.
But I know him playing club baseball, travel baseball with that community, with those athletes, with those kids, and the parents that were around. I don't think he would be the man he is today without sports. And so I know sports is, and it probably, you might not be the man you are today without the sports that you had. And, you know, and that doesn't mean for everybody. I mean, there kids like different things, but like, even if I told my wife back when my son was young, I'm like, I don't care what he does. I don't care if he plays the piano. He's going to do something to be occupied in this world. And I think that's where kids go wrong now. That's kind of where my heart is. And John, I've told him, with kids who are always on social media, always on their phones, not getting out into the world and doing things. And I want to be able to have our nonprofit be a part of helping people, but also helping the youth get out of the house, get off your phones, get off your iPads, and go do something: hiking, sports, athletics, piano. If you want to go play piano, if we can start a nonprofit that your parents can afford you to take piano lessons or go do stuff, I want the nonprofit to be able to do stuff like that for kids, for youth, just like you are. And I want to be a part of that. And I love having you on. I like having Rick Strasser on with these nonprofits. And I don't know how they work at all, period. Like, is people going to give us money or what? I don't know. But I watched that. It's funny. I told him I watched a documentary on HBO about telemarketing and how this nonprofit was using telemarketing. FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, was using this company to sell donations for fallen police officers. Well, that company was taking 90% of the profit. Only 10% of that money for the nonprofit was going to the fallen officers. And then they weren't even getting the money. And I'm like, we want to start nonprofits where we really want the money to go to what we want it to go to. And I told him, I'm like, we got to be able to do that. We got to be able to help I think the youth are the future, obviously, you know. What's her name? Whitney Houston.
I believe the children are the
future.
You keep talking and I'll singing in the background.
No, please don't. But
Let them lead the way.
But I know what it did for my son, and my daughter's doing wrestling now and sports and just being out and get off these iPhones, get off these iPads and go do something, you know. And I think it's great what you're trying to do. I feel like what we're trying to do. I love what Rick Strasser's trying to do, and that's why I love having you guys on. So. And also, let's get into the Navy SEAL. Oh wait, you're not.
Yeah, man. All right.
just another thing is, like I said, I have family that, you know, haven't had those opportunities. Like for instance, I have a cousin that's fighting for his life right now in incarceration, and I know that he was a great athlete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you talk about like something that gives me fuel. And that's one of the things that gives me fuel every day, because, you know, you look at it and you just see the impact that when we had an opportunity and I had an opportunity to put my hands on them and, you know, kind of have that change. Yeah. The change was made, and, you know, things can turn. And people, you know, are in control of their own decisions at the end of the day. But I think that people will make decisions based on their environment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you can give an environment and to people and give them opportunity, like, because I even tell my kids this every day, the only thing you can ask for in life is an opportunity. Yeah. Anything outside of that, you're probably asking for too much, right? Yeah. Because what you do with your opportunity is 100% on you. When you get the opportunity, you're either going to be prepared for it and you're going to be successful with the opportunity, or you're not going to be prepared and you're not going to be successful, or you're going to be prepared and God has something else waiting for you. Yeah. So at the end of the day, once you give kids an opportunity or an environment with a higher valued opportunities, you start to see them be more successful. And then it only takes one, right? Like I said, my dad changed his life and changed a lot of people's life around. You know what I mean? So
coaches are big influences as well.
If you can get one, you know, then you can change a multitude of different people if you can just help one person.
It's interesting because what I wrote down as you're saying, because it would be something to think about. Capitalize on opportunity, right? That's what you're saying. You have opportunity. Now, how do you capitalize on it? And as success comes, be a conduit of grace. This goes back to even what you're saying about it having a nonprofit, and like the one you mentioned on the Netflix show with these toothless homeless guys making millions of dollars by ripping people off. By ripping people off. By ripping people off. When the reality is, as we're blessed, as we have success, as we've capitalized on opportunities, Now, the reality is if you have a biblical perspective, an eternal perspective, because that's what we're called to do if we believed in Jesus, is now we're called to be a conduit of grace. You know, like a conduit, the stuff flows right through the pipe. You know what I mean? Yeah, we're successful, but it should flow right through and out to other people to provide an opportunity for them. And that's how you organically grow a community of faith and people who are making good decisions and can have a positive impact on people.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I'm hearing. I'm kind of summarizing because I know we're going to be wrapping up in the next few minutes anyways. I'm not sure, but I know we're probably getting close. And so do you have any kind of closing thoughts on that type of thinking? Like you're trying, like, where do you see the future, I guess, is really what I'm getting at in the nonprofit side of trying to be an impact and influence for people.
Like you said, just trying to be, I don't deserve any of this.
Yeah.
I'm not deserving. You know what I mean? Like, but I do get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whether or not someone else is not my, it's not my prerogative. Like I don't, that's not my deal. My deal is to be a servant.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
That's
right?
awesome.
Because I don't deserve. So what makes you undeserving? You know what I mean? Like if I don't deserve it and I get it, then why can't I give it to you? And I'm human.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We all are.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day,
Oh, yeah.
you know, somebody cuts me off, I get mad. You know?
Well, we talked about
like
that.
we all do, you know what I mean? At the end of the day. But, you know,
that's the whole
I
premise
try to
of
keep
this.
it all in perspective.
Got you.
You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like, you know, I receive so much grace and, you know, I'm able to be in good health and, you know, we might have got our butt kicked yesterday, but I woke up this morning, I ate,
Yeah.
I'm breathing.
You're blessed.
You
You're
know,
blessed,
I'm
yeah.
blessed.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
blessed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that in that and knowing where my life could have been and the grace that God has had and his hand's been on my life, why should I not use my life to serve others? Like why would I not do that? So
I think that's excellent perspective. I would say that to any listener, man. Whatever you've been given, you're actually called to give of that. And God actually tells us he'll continually overflow our cup if we're willing to continually give it out. Whatever it is, time, talent, athleticism, like you've got coaching ability. You've got such a major opportunity you do as a coach to impact so many lives that it's crazy. They always call that the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at a young man right now. I'm looking at you,
Yeah.
and I know you're out there coaching, and I love this dude right here, Alan, enough to know that if he says you're out there doing it and giving it that way, then I know you are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then what that tells me is there are countless young men, because they take it home to their families, to their siblings, to other kids, right? You never know the impact you have.
Right.
Like, because just how they might conduct themselves or a decision they might make in a moment that could go really bad or really okay and have an amazing lasting impact on others that you might have 5 years ago, 2 years ago in coaching said one thing to 30 kids and one kid it clicked. And there's like an effect for eternity, by the way. We can start talking about eternal rewards and all these things. So I'm just saying thank you, man. I see a guy who's, my prayer for you is that you continue down that road, down a path to glorify God by doing your best every day and giving everything you've been given out so that you provide opportunity for all them guys. And I pray for your family that's incarcerated, because that's a whole nother ballgame. We'll get into that actually in coming weeks. We may be blessed by some Hope for Prisoners stuff. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
But thank you, man. I'm just telling you thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. I guess we're going to wrap it up. Check out JD Athlete Advantage on Instagram and his business, and anything else about it we need to know. Can we promote it some other way?
Shout out to the podcast. Just want to say that me and Alan started at the same time, and we both said that we were going to start this, and
We're both doing it.
this is pretty cool. Kind
Appreciate
of full
it.
circle moment, you know,
That's cool.
awesome.
in the Lake Mead hallways.
Yeah, it's talking.
just had a conversation, and God's good.
I'm going to call that
God's
faith in action, man.
Yeah.
I like
good.
it.
Hey man, I appreciate you, JD. I like I told you at the beginning, there you know, you're the light that some of these kids need. I've watched it, even though you're at a Christian school. Those kids weren't all Christians, and you make an impact on those kids and the kids you're doing it now. And I know you do it as well in your business, so I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you like. Make sure you share, because we need more followers.
Yeah, we'll get this video thing figured out, man. We'll get it going.
I'm almost there. I'm sorry
Yeah,
about my
we'll get there.
YouTube, because I have my editing sucks.
It's
All
good.
right, that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
Be
you.
blessed.
Be blessed.
Every